righty. I'll wait a couple of more minutes for the late ladies. Now, for those that were here last week, we do apologise that the Zoom cut off dramatically. Someone had booked another call right on the hour, so therefore it kicks us out. And so we didn't kind of finish the question that was asked, but I think I did. So, you know, we're trying to rectify that. We have asked for the powers to be to see if we can change that so we have time, because I think it's really important that if it's, you know, there's times we stick to the hour, but if God's flowing, then we want to be able to flow with God as well. That's number one important. So we're just looking to rectify that. All righty. So the last couple of weeks I've been talking about the difference between submission, surrender. Last week I talked about, you know, how to identify when you're striving in your own strength, when you're trying to do things, you know, without God. And sometimes it's a very subtle shift. So today I'm going to present to you what I believe is some very, I don't want to use the word wrong, but some teachings that can really disempower us. And, you know, I'm hoping that you will grasp hold of, you know, how this affects us and how we can change it. So some of the things that have been taught, they talk about the spirit, but they talk about spiritual gifts are separate from the spirit. And I find this a lot in teachings where they're trying to break down, you know, a lot of the giftings and the things that, you know, God has for us. And I'll give you another prime example. And if you come out of Christendom, you know, it's like, oh, what's your gifting? Are you a prophet? Are you an apostle? Are you an evangelist? Are you a teacher? Or are you just got ministry of helps? Now, I found it always quite interesting that most women had the ministry of helps and were only allowed to be in the kitchen or, you know, doing the cleaning or being, you know, a greeter at the door, but only if there was a male present. And there's a lot of controversy coming through at the moment. I don't know if you guys are aware, there's a lot of evangelicals, a lot of very high-end, you know, high-end as in famous pastors that are being exposed for a lot of not so good things that they have done throughout their ministry. And this is something that God had shown me over 10 years ago, because my journey has been one that does present what's going on in the spirit. And I have had many challenges where I've had to expose people, not in a way that I'm running around the church exposing them, always tried to do it with integrity and honor and go to the right leaders to say, this is what I'm seeing in the spirit. And this gentleman has a serious problem. And this is what's going to happen. Now, you know, for too long, the messenger is the one that gets punished. And I was often punished or asked to leave the church or labeled many different things that are totally not even scriptural. And yet, within 3, 6 months, 12 months, everything I said would come to pass. And it would be devastating. And I would be devastated simply because I was like, you know, we could have avoided this. So there's a teaching at the moment where people are talking about the different gifts of the Spirit. So let me break this down for you. They're saying that there's revelational, and then there's power, and then there's action, which all link into what calling do you have on your life? What's your gifting? Okay. Are you an apostle? You're a prophet? You're a, an evangelist, all that sort of thing. And I've always, it's never sat with me. Can I just be really honest? I've always struggled with the fact that that is not truth. Because when God comes into your life, he doesn't give you drips. He doesn't give you bits and pieces of himself. He gives you all of him. So when I'm moving in the spirit, I'm tapping into all of God that's available. My journey, our journey, is learning to understand what he is saying to us and how to move with it. But, the teaching of baby Christians, that you're a baby Christian and God's just giving you milk. Well, in the natural, how long does a natural baby need milk? Not very long. They, within a couple of months, you're introducing the next level. Well, God is the same. But everything that that child needs, everything that we need, is already provided and given to us. And again, I'll go back to this. A child doesn't go, oh, can you now put me in a bed because I need a bed? Can you now put me in a room because I need a room? Or can I now please come and live in the house because, I'm that much older now, I can live in the house. Can you see the irony of some of the teaching that we have accepted from a God perspective that isn't true? So, the way that they've split up the giftings, as in they've labeled it revelational, power, or action, they deem it as insight, verbal, or works, right? Action, doing the dishes, or, to me, that's not what it means. It actually means walking in miracles. Action is walking in miracles, healings. Where I want to come from this is, guys, we walk in all of those. They are not separated. I feel that we need to kind of step over this great divide of teachings of limitations, boundaries, and separation. The biggest lie that we've been taught is separation. This is how they've used the word sin. Well, you're a sinner, so you're separated from God. That is not what Scripture is saying. God has poured his Spirit on all flesh. It says that in Joel 2:28. Says, I will pour out my Spirit on all flesh. Now, that's Old Testament. We're coming into the New Testament where we're looking at what Jesus did for us. So it comes to the choice of, do you accept the Spirit of God in your life? That's the simple choice. Do you acknowledge God? And a lot of us have been brought up knowing of God. There's not a person that does not know of God. The question is, knowing of him and knowing him is completely different. I know of lots of people. Oh, yeah, I know that. I know of that person, but I've never personally met them. When we ask God to come into our life, we get to personally meet him. So, and what happens is when we personally meet God, when we ask him to come into our life and we have the exchange. All of you, God, for all of me. We step into the fullness of who God is and everything that he is offering. And that's where we partner with God, which is, again, I've talked about this a lot. And we're stepping into his fullness and his completion, where our being is his presence. And our life has purpose and meaning. Every minute of the day. So biblically, what we're talking about here is that God is pouring out, filling, dwelling, and renewing us by his Spirit. There's no separation. He has released his Spirit into our lives. He is hovering, moving in everybody's circumstances and situation to bring them into that knowledge of him and being in him. That's the shift. Lots of people talk about they know God. They, oh yeah, he created the earth. You can't, no one can deny that God doesn't exist. He does exist. He is in everything. He is everywhere. Our entire planet is completely, embedded in God's word. Have you ever wondered how incredible it is that the tide never comes any further than what it's meant to come in? Every day, I live near the beach. Every day I know that the tide will only come to a certain height and then it'll go back out again, because scripture tells us that is what God ordained. God has ordained us, you and me, to walk in the fullness, the completion of his Spirit. We have God DNA in us. It's infused and it's indwelling, and he's filling and he's renewing us by his Spirit. In other words, making us new every day. He's given us strength. He's given us power. He's given us insight. He's given us knowledge. It's the questions that I talk about all the time helps engage you into what he is saying. Have you ever had a one-sided conversation? It's pretty boring, isn't it? I noticed Lisa just looked at hands then. It's when people don't let you interact or have your say, or put your knowledge into it. It's really boring. You sit there going, yep, good. They just want to talk about what they want to talk about. That is not a relationship. It's fundamental. If I don't harp on anything, let me harp on this. God wants to have relationship with us. He wants to be involved in our life. John 6:63 says, the words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. So let's go a little bit deeper here. The words that you speak or the breath that you breathe is the very presence of God. Think about that. Now, there's a big move on breath work all of a sudden. You know, everyone's doing breath work. And I just go, oh my gosh, another modality. Now, do I breathe? Absolutely. Do I sometimes take one breath just so I, you know, if I'm in a tough situation, so I can reset? But I don't sit there for hours breathing or, you know, trying to go into a meditation. Now, often these transcendental meditation is actually not always godly. I know of a young lady that went to a breath work workshop, a 4-day workshop. She ended up getting possessed. She had an entity come into her that the people that were running the camp didn't know how to deal with. And it changed her personality. So again, I want to stress, be very careful who you are sitting under or who you are opening yourself up to that are presenting something spiritual that is not of God. And the beautiful thing about God is when we connect with him, we gain his character. As in, we are growing to be more like him, his expression on the earth. And I want to touch on that, in that we talk about God is love. It's steadfast love. If you want a scripture for that, it's 1 John 4:8. His love is unconditional. He loves us no matter what. There is no, oh, yep, you missed it today. I'm not gonna love you today. God never takes his hand off your life. He never walks out of the room because he's disgusted with you, because that's not how he sees you. And then God is hope. Hope is in him that he hopes in us. That's God's hope. His hope is that we, his creation, his children, come into the awareness, that infusion of the spirit of knowing who we are and breaking out of the things that we are under. And then God has faith. He's faithful. He keeps his covenant with us. And yet we're taught that it's us that have to love, us that have to have faith, us that have to hope. And yet those characteristics are part of the exchange that God has given us by his Spirit. It's not a striving to love. It's not a striving to have hope. It's not a striving to have faith. Because when we love, there is healing to relationships. There's healing to the world. When we hope, there is realignment that comes into our life. And when we have faith, it's faith to command resources into place and positions. Now think about that. People often take the scripture that talks about you have faith like a mustard seed. Guys, do you know how tiny a mustard seed is? It is so tiny. It's about the size of the head of a pin. And if you look at that and you go, wow, if I have faith like a mustard seed, the size of a mustard seed, I can speak to the mountains. And this is where, again, some of the misteachings is, and I've heard pastors say this to people, oh, you don't have enough faith. How can we not have enough faith when God says if we have faith the size of a mustard seed, which is so minuscule, that we can speak to the mountains? Because we are not being taught the truth of the gospel, of the truth of what God and Jesus has done for us. Faith is to command resources. In other words, we decree and declare, and we bring order where there is chaos, and we sit from a place of authority. The question to ask yourself, if there are things in your life that is not right, please ask God why. What is it? Is it a generational thing? Is it something that's within me? Is there wrong teaching? Is there a wrong foundation or a wrong belief that's in my life? Is it, did I miss something? And God will show you. Now, I'm going to be really honest with you guys. There are times where I ask God questions and he doesn't tell me straight away. But then I find what happens is the days and weeks that come after that, he's shaping me, he's opening me, he's wooing me to come into the revelation of the answer of my question. And then I go, oh, that's what that is. Wow, God, I'm so sorry. I did not know that that was there. And I'll share this story. There was a time I'm vacuuming the house, I'm cleaning, doing, being a mother, being a wife, being a woman. And then God just spoke to me and he said, you think that I'm passive. And I was like, what? And I stopped vacuuming. I'm going, God, because I was worshiping while I'm cleaning. It's the only way to clean. I'm in dialogue with God. And I went, what? And I stopped. He goes, you think I am passive. And this truth bubbled up deep within the core of my being. And I went, I do. I was shocked. I didn't know it was there. And I went, I do think you're passive. You take a long time to answer my prayers. And I was being honest because the truth was rising up from my inner core. And he said to me, you think I'm passive because your father was passive. And I had the biggest breakthrough because I was looking at God through the lens of how I saw my own father. This is what builds our core values. This is what builds the principles in our life. This is what builds the belief systems that we have, that we've been programmed with as children, knowingly and unknowingly. Culturally, there are things that are even programmed in us. We are like sponges when we are first brought into the earth. No, we are. We're opened. It's only the things that life deals to us that hardens our hearts, that shuts us down, which makes us go into self-preservation. And that is what causes a divide. because we are not brought up teaching and knowing who the real God is. So, when you ask questions, don't think that God hasn't heard you. Don't think that he's not moving on your behalf. Because he is always moving on your behalf. He is always on your side. He's always wooing you and drawing you and bringing you into the fullness of the truth of who he is and the incredible gifts that he's given us in the Spirit. The gift to see down your timeline, to, have authority over your circumstances and situation, how to govern your time, how to release healings, how to work in the Spirit. And let me just go full circle here and come back to every gift of the Spirit flows together. You don't just move in one aspect. It's like, oh, I only have insight. You can't have insight without verbal communication. And you can't have verbal communication without there being an action. It's like there's no way you can be what they deem as boxes, which is what I started with. Are you an apostle? Are you a prophet? Are you an evangelist? Are you a healing? Right? You don't move in one without the others. It's not possible. It's like saying, I'm a mum, but I'm not a woman. What? That doesn't work. And this is the misteachings that we've had. We flow in all of the revelation of God. We can flow in all the power of God. We can move in all the action of God. That is the fullness of the Spirit, which has been infused in you. If you have asked God to come into your life. I have found, it's very interesting, it's like this world puts us in boxes. Like even our Zoom is a box. Our Zoom face is in a box. This world puts us in boxes. God does not. Don't get trapped in the boxes this world labels you with. I hate labels, hate them. Like, and people go, oh, you're this. And I go, am I? I don't think so. Or do you think? That's your opinion. Because I want to stay open to anything and everything that God has for me. If one day he wants me to move in miracles, which he has done, I'm not just saying one day, I'm like, if a particular day he goes, I want you to move in miracles, I can't move in miracles without the verbal. In other words, without speaking. And I can't move in without speaking in miracles without the revelation of what God is saying to me. They are a continuous and complete flow of God's presence and power in your life. If you do not feel God's presence, then you need to ask why. Is there something that I'm believing that's not truth? I tell you, another really big lie is that God is in a distance. God is far away, you know, or you can only go to church to find and feel God, or, you know, God only, you know, his anointing only falls on the, you know, the chosen or the elite. That is rubbish. If you are infused with the power and presence of God, you are anointed. It's another word I have a hard time with, because I've seen it, guys. You know, oh yes, I'm anointed. God's anointed me. I just look at him and go, get over yourself. We're all anointed. We're all his creation. We all have a stamp or a seal on our heart with his DNA. We have the Spirit of God infused in us. It's the choice of awakening. It's the choice of stepping into it. And it's not works. It's a flow. It's relationship. God's DNA written on our heart. There are natural inheritances that belong to us in the Spirit. Every single one of us. And it comes from the love, it comes from the hope and the faith that we have in him, but he has in us. It is not a one-sided relationship. It's a partnership. And it's, you know, again, if it's like, if you need to go, okay, God, we're going now. You're coming with, like, whatever you need to do to start changing your perspective. If you've had an angry dad, you will see God as an angry God. And that will be a hindrance to your relationship with him. If you had a mother that was the stronger personality in your life, you will even see God through that lens. Whoever has had, you know, authority over your life that has represented something particular. Another example is school teachers in, you know, Christian or Catholic churches. They represent an authority, and they've also presented themselves as the voice of God or God themselves. That will have an effect on you. And it could be really subtle. And this is where, ask God, is there anything that is in the way of our relationship together? Is there anything that is stopping your, you know, that I'm doing? Have I stepped out of where you want me to be? Have I, you know, missed it? That's, again, comes back to the importance of clearing your, you know, spiritual and emotional day life every day when your day is finished, so that you keep short accounts. Because often if something happens to you that you get hurt or offended, and there's a little bit of hardening in your heart, and then life goes on, and then all of a sudden something else happens, and then that hardening becomes a bit thicker, and then it becomes thicker, and it becomes thicker, and all of a sudden you've got this wall up. And we think it's keeping the world out, but often it's keeping what God is wanting to do in your life. We make that choice. God doesn't make that choice. We make that choice. We can keep him at a distance or we can keep him close. Is there any questions here today, guys? Yeah.
Just on a side note, what is the difference between miracles and wonders? Because you hear that there's different things, but I'm not sure.
Well, miracles, I'm talking about miracles where, you know, people are getting healed or, you know, you're raising people from the dead. But awe and wonder is all part of who God is. I never stop to cease at the awe of God, the vastness of God, the beauty of God, and his wonder. You know, if God, you know, people, because when I do prayer with people and they get breakthroughs, it just, you know, that it's a miracle. That's a miracle, but it's also awe and wonder. But it takes all of the gifts for that to happen. Okay, it takes the insight, the revelation, it takes the power of the Spirit, and then it takes action. So that's why you can't separate them. They work together. And yet we've been taught that they are separate. They're not. They work together all the time. The question is, you can get a revelation or insight, and then you go, well, what do you want me to do with that? Do I speak it out? Which generally that's the case. We speak it out. We don't always speak it to the person. Now, there's a real key here, guys. You've got to use wisdom when you're moving in the Spirit. There's a lot of things that I see in people's lives that I do not even utter. But in my prayer time, I partner with God in it. Now, this is another key, guys. When God tells you something, don't go, oh, yeah, I'll address that later. If God's telling you something, act on it. Right? And that's another thing. I go, God, what do you want me to do with that? He'll show me something. I go, what do you want me to do with that? He goes, I just want you to hold it in your heart. I want you to hold that person up in the Spirit. I go, okay. There are times he goes, I want you to have a coffee with that person because he's going to orchestrate a conversation that I can start to share the insight. I'm very, very gentle with how I bring the things of God to a person's life, because I've seen a lot of people get more traumatized from, you know, God's so-called God's deliverance or healing because of the way that it's been done. And a lot of times when it's been done in drama or dramatic or it's a show, is because the person that's moving in that gift wants it to, they're moving in ego. So they want it to be dramatic. They want it, oh, I look like I've got the authority. I'm telling you, the spirit realm knows if you have authority or not. Doesn't matter how loud you yell, doesn't matter how dramatic or, you know, theatrical that you are, the spirit realm knows if you have authority or not. And I've watched this many times that people are, yeah, they get louder and louder. And I'm just there going, it's not going to make any difference how loud you scream. It's not like God can't hear you. And it's certainly not like the spirit realm doesn't know what you're trying to do. So, you know, if you're moving in healings or deliverances, guys, that is enough. Because the spirit realm knows who has authority and who has not. and there are a lot of charlatans out there. There's a lot of deception out there, and I'm seeing God, reveal all the things that have been hidden. And a lot of people are in shock and horror. Well, if you're moving in God, you have discernment, you wouldn't be in shock and horror because you would already know. That's why a lot of the excuses a lot of leadership makes, oh, but we didn't know. Go, how did you not know? If you're moving in the Spirit, God would have already told you. You would have already had an inkling. You would have already known. But they don't want to because they're all fluffing up their own ministries or each other's ministries, because that's how it works, which is really sad. It's all about the 3 G's, the gold, the glory, and the girls. Or if it's a woman, it's the guys. And if ego comes in, guys, if you can feel ego, if you can feel agenda, if you can feel your spirit go, oh, something's not right. Use discernment. Alexandria?
Hello, can you hear
Hi.
me?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Yep. I have a question about relationship with God. Yeah, I used to think before that I really needed to do the baptism to have stronger relationship, and now I don't really feel that much. What do you think about that? Like to
Yeah, that's
being
fine.
baptized?
The thing is, where the infusion is a baptism of the Spirit. We can, there's things that we can do to help bring transition and transformation. And that's why I looked at doing immersions so that people can make significant, yep, this is a shift. Now, I did a couple of people and they got baptized, and it prepared them for something they were about to step into that was really difficult. Then when they got to the other side of it, they asked to get baptized again. And that was a washing away of some things that they had gone through because of what was happening in their life. Okay, so it's better that you don't need rituals. It's better that you have this flow and growth in the Spirit of where God's growing you. It's just we've been taught about having rituals, but there are times when God will say, okay, baptize them. There are actions that the Spirit will tell me to do or take so that the breakthrough steps in. So, Alexandria, if you're not feeling that you need that, because we've been talking about that for over 12 months, and it didn't happen, it constantly things were getting in the way. And I just felt God going, this is not the right time yet. So I never push into making something happen because I know when there's resistance and I know when it's God's hand. Like there are some things happening, not for me personally, but for people that are close to me. And I had a dream just last week and I just saw the hand of God. And God just said to me, he said, they're resisting my hand. And I went, whoa. So I'm like, okay, God, you're moving on this. And part of that is knowing what you're up against. Because a lot of people will call things the devil when it's actually God's hand moving on our behalf because they don't like what they're going through. But God always has the best for us. So I think that's awesome, Alexandria, that you're feeling, no, I don't need to do that. That doesn't mean that down the track we won't do that, but that's growth. Okay, because you're not looking, and this is where I come from. People love their crystals and they do lots of different things, but they're all external. Okay, we want to tap into the internal, that connection we have internally with God, the Spirit of God that we carry. That's internal. You want to hear the discernment, you know, that little voice that says something's not right here. That's internal. So you want to listen to that. You want to heed that. You want that voice to grow stronger and louder, and, you know, you're more confident in it, that it becomes just a whisper, because you know that it's God. That's how you grow. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hans?
Yeah, I'd like to share two stories that seem to be related to what you've just been talking about. And I started on this journey in growing spiritually somewhere in my late teens, quite some time ago. I started reading and listening to people and reading more, until at some stage I started to realize, okay, hold on, it's all head knowledge. It's not integrated into my being, into who I am. So I stopped reading at that time and started to put it into action. And then the other thing is, and it is from, I think, 3 years or so ago, I realized that being trapped in the New Age cage, I was constantly looking at drawing energy from the outside in. And then I had I've been told several times, God is everywhere, so also inside of you. Then I had this vision of a small wellspring in my heart, and realized that is more what God would be looking like. So I'm still struggling into letting go of dragging the energy from the outside in, but and trying to allow the wellspring to flow through all of my system, to all of my being.
Yeah.
Just the two stories that I'd like to share, because they seem
absolutely relevant. So it's often I might do a teaching on that, actually, that how the energy fields and our spirituality and how they work. I've actually got a workshop on it that I'm working on, because it's really important that we understand the difference, because we're either drawing the energy from out here, which if you're in nature, you know, like I love water. So, you know, when I get in water, I just, it's an encounter, right? Water is very significant to me. For some people, it's walking in the forest, you know, because it's outside, but it also does something from the inside. It's more important that it does something from the inside. So, you know, the power, the DNA of God is within you. The creation of God is outside of you. So you want to be coming from the true source, or the river of life, that he's in you, that that's where you draw his strength, not your strength. That's part of the exchange. So, and it's all about your heart. So if you want to expand God's power around you, like coming out from you, you expand your heart. In other words, you let love fill you up and then reach out. Sometimes things in the spirit have no words, so I find it really hard to how does this work? And I spend a lot of time trying to put into words the experiences that I have, so that I can help others, because it's there's so much in the spirit that has no words because it's an encounter. And some of the colors and the things that you see, there's no words. There's no, experiences. You just go, awesome. Or the wow factor is, even that is so limited to the experiences that you can have with God because they just have no words. And often, let me say this, often man's theology or our, mindset restricts the spirit. And then the spirit cannot have bring the full frequency of heaven onto the earth. So, some people will go, I'm a very simple person and I've been criticized for that. I'm going, well, I like my simplicity because my head doesn't get in the way. The heart of God is where I flow from. Right? I don't need, and I've done Bible school and I've studied the Bible and I've done lots of different courses, but if it doesn't resonate in my heart, if it doesn't have life on it, if it doesn't have the living flow of the Spirit on it, sometimes I prepare things and I have all these notes for you guys and I'll go, yeah, I'm going to do this really professionally, I'm going to have all the, it doesn't flow for me. I'm like, because I'm restricted to this realm. I've got to be free to flow in the Spirit. Helena, let me answer your question, darling.
Hi, Dottie. Hi, everyone.
Hey, darling. I'm great.
My question is, because my parents and my in-laws of like 6 different religions, when my 2 sons were born, I decided not to christen or baptize them because I never was brought up with any kind of religion, really, because my parents were so different, and they just kind of didn't put anything on us. So, and then, the other 2 in-laws everyone was arguing about what to christen these, my 2 sons. And I said, well, they can work it out when they're older if they want to. So is it a bad thing that they never were baptized or christened?
Can I be honest with you? You probably did them a really big favor because the baptisms of, say, the Catholic Church is actually a spiritual contract that is connected to Lucifer.
Oh, my God.
Right? Now, I've gone down, again, this is a lot of stuff that I've prepared to teach people, but I'm not feeling God's asking me to do that because it is pretty heavy. And if anyone has been baptized into a church, into a religion, you need to break that spiritual contract and renounce it simply because it's like an oath. It's a vow that you've made. And God is bigger than it, and he still works in your life, but that as you grow in him, you end up unpacking some of that stuff because that becomes a hindrance when you grow in your spirit. So you've probably done your kids a really big favor. And where are they today? Like, are they?
They're both really good boys, and they're really happy and doing their thing. They don't know anything about the Bible or religion because I've never really kind of gone that way myself.
But you've taught them to be good. You've taught them to be, you've taught them to know what's right and wrong, how to treat other people, right?
Yes.
That is God. That is already you know, teaching them what's right and wrong, how to treat others, is already teaching them about the truth of who God is and who they are. And, you know, now you can just say, God, just come into their life, make yourself real to them. And you just sit back. You let God do the work. We don't have to do the work. We don't have to hit people over the head. We don't have to go, you need to get saved because you're a sinner, because that nullifies what Jesus did on the cross, where the world is already saved. It just doesn't know it. And the awakening that we're in is the Spirit of God is moving, and people are now asking the questions. They want to connect with God, but they want the one true God, not all the false idols and images and New Age rhetoric and religious propaganda. They want the truth. They want the authenticity. They want to connect with their Creator. Okay, Malia. Thanks, Helena.
Hi, I just wanted to follow up on that I'm so thankful to have found this Empower movement and this call with you, because regarding baptism, I had body work done one time, and I baptized as a baby in our my childhood church, and
Yeah.
and then we had issues with our church, and we chose to leave, and were asked to leave all at the same time, and it was, you know, the best thing that happened in my view, you know. But as an adult now, and having two children, I didn't feel like it was right to baptize them in a church, you know, because I didn't go back to it. I never found anything that resonated with me. But I feel the pressure from family, you know, like from my mom, from my whole family. They've never said anything, but
let me give you something that you can say to them. The reason that people get their children baptized is because religion taught them fear. The fear is if you don't baptize your child, they're not going to make it to heaven. What a load of crock.
Right.
Okay. It is all fear-based. And that is the question. Say and go, do you realize that baptism is all fear-based? And they'll go, what do you mean? I'm going, well, you're threatened by a priest or a pastor that if you don't baptize your child, that they will go to hell.
Right.
That is not God's heart.
No.
And if they're preaching the gospel, that is definitely not who God is.
Right.
And
right.
this is the difference.
Yeah, I totally understand that.
I know, I'm just giving you some words. I know you understand it, and I'm so grateful, and I'm so, you know, thank God that he took you out of that nonsense.
Yes, I thank him all the time. Yeah.
Yep, it's awesome. Okay, so and I look, guys, I get it. We all want to fit somewhere. You know, we're going, oh, you know, sometimes I miss some of the singing aspects of, you know, being in a church, and even the community in some aspects. But then I don't miss the false friendships, and I don't miss the, you know, misteachings and the, you know, the rubbish and the programming and the you have to's. I go, God doesn't make us do that. Man makes us do that. That's where you can test the spirit again. If someone's telling you you have to do something, then you have to question it, because God always gives us free will. Every person here is here by their free will. And if you don't like me, you can go. That's fine. I hope you like me. But that's your free choice. And that's really important, because God never goes against our free will. And that is the thing that is always attacked. That is where the enemy is always trying to squash us down, trying to tell us you don't have a choice, you have to do this, you've got to comply, you know, you've got to do the rituals, or you've got to do the Bible studies, or you've got to come to the prayer meetings because you're not going to make it to heaven. The biggest lie that ever lived. It is a simple heart connection.
So what I was gonna say, and then I'll be done, was that I had body work done, and she picked up on, you know, I've been doing a lot of emotional healing, and she helps me trace it back to you know, events in my life, and one of them traced back to my baptism, and that when I was baptized, I was angry and defiant.
Yeah.
So I just had to
That's
laugh
right.
when I heard that, you know, even as an infant, my soul knew that that was not
Not of God.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because
Yeah.
we are children of God, and we come from God, and we are blessed by Him before we are born. I mean, it's yeah. So I just wanted,
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought that
The
was
thing is,
funny.
and that's fantastic. And I think many of us have those stories as well. It's like we just knew that the Catholic Church was rubbish. I said it at the age of 7 to my mum, going, well, I have to go through a priest to speak to God. God's not worth talking to. So, which she was on her knees and saying her 10, 20 Hail Marys. But your spirit knows the truth. Children know the truth. That's why I listen to what I look to see how children respond and react to people around them. You know, like if they start crying when someone comes near them, have a look in the spirit. If they light up, and this happens to me and my daughter all the time. It's really cute to watch. Kids just and they just go, you know, and we start engaging. We just start looking at the kids and having a little smile because we know what they're seeing. You don't underestimate. Our kids can see into the spirit realm. You know, they respond to it. They're interacting with it. I've seen children, you know, interacting with angels, which is really beautiful to watch. And it was like, wow, look at that. I get to see that. I get to see God, you know, interacting with these children. They're very, very special. Alexandria, you got another question, darling?
Yes, thank you. Just a quick wording on because I was baptized in Orthodox Church. Just breaking that contract. What would be good wording?
Just break. Look, it's really good to just break any and all spiritual contracts, known or unknown, and bringing it under the authority of the one true God, and break any of its power over my life.
Thank
Now,
you.
if there's more to it, just like Malia had shared, when you do, and you guys all know that I do all of that too, you know, go down your generational line and deal with inner healing and traumas. If there's more to it, someone needs to put their microphone on quiet, please. If there's more to it, God will reveal the root issue, or if there's any residual of it, any influence on your life that's a hindrance, you know, and it's not a hindrance to God, it's a hindrance to us. So God is moving the hindrances that are stopping us from flowing in the fullness of what He has for us and who we are. It always attacks the who of who we are. That's everything religion, you know, New Age, all the rhetorics, it's all limitations. It's all, you know, well, God can't use you because you're a woman, and, you know, oh, you can't do that because you haven't been to Bible study, and, you know, God doesn't move like that. And I go, well, guess what? He does. And you got to stand for what you know is your truth. And we are all at different levels of truth and revelation and growth. And that's why we have grace for one another to keep growing, to keep learning. All right, I think we'll finish there for today. Hope you enjoyed that and felt God was very strong and his presence is on it, which he always is. It's such a pleasure to do this with you guys. And the more of us that step into our truth and our power, we can change the world, because love conquers all things. Don't get bogged down in the negative. Don't get caught up in the negative. Stay in the truth of what God is saying. Hey, Bradley. See everyone. Have a great day. Love you lots.
Night, Daddy. Love you.
Good night.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Thanks, Dottie.
Thank you. See you, Linda. See you, Alexandria.